We are entering a phase of warfare and technology where the lines between private companies, national security, and civilian life are blurring in ways that few policymakers were prepared for. The war in Ukraine has become the laboratory for this shift. Roughly 2/3 of battlefield casualties over the past 3 years are estimated to have involved drones in some form. Many of these are first-person view drones, remotely piloted systems that allow an operator to guide an explosive device directly into a target. They are relatively cheap, highly adaptable, and devastatingly effective. At first, the main defense against these drones was electronic jamming. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces invested heavily in disrupting radio signals that connect operators to their drones. In response, operators adapted. One workaround involved fiber-optic spools attached to drones, physically linking operator and machine through a cable that unreels in flight. Because the signal travels through a wire rather than the air, it cannot be jammed in the traditional sense. The only way to stop such a drone is to destroy it outright, which is extremely difficult given their small size and speed. Now the technological evolution has taken another step. Russia has reportedly begun mounting portable satellite internet terminals onto longer-range drones. These terminals connect to the satellite network operated by Starlink, which is owned by Elon Musk through SpaceX. Unlike short-range FPV drones limited to 10 or 15 miles, drones connected via satellite can theoretically be operated over hundreds of kilometers. That dramatically expands their reach, allowing strikes deep into infrastructure and civilian areas. This development changes the tactical equation. A satellite link is far harder to jam than a standard radio signal because it relies on a distributed network of thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit. To block it, an adversary would need either advanced electronic warfare targeting satellite frequencies or physical destruction of the drone itself. The barrier to entry for long-range precision strikes drops significantly when commercially available internet terminals can be repurposed for military use. The legal and ethical implications are complex. With a traditional component like a microchip, once it is sold, the manufacturer does not control its end use. Satellite connectivity is different. It is an active service. Access can be granted, restricted, or terminated remotely. That raises the question of responsibility. If a commercial satellite network is knowingly used to facilitate military strikes, particularly against civilian targets, what obligation does the provider have to intervene? Reports from Ukrainian sources claim that recovered drone wreckage contained Starlink terminals with identifiable serial numbers. Russian channels have circulated footage suggesting satellite-linked drones were used in attacks on infrastructure and civilian targets, including trains and power facilities. In response to mounting scrutiny, Starlink has reportedly begun adjusting geofencing and mobility controls in conflict zones. For example, terminals moving at high speeds off recognized road networks may trigger automated shutdowns. If accurate, this suggests the company recognizes the risk and is attempting to limit misuse. Still, the broader issue remains unresolved. In the United States, legal standards around platform liability are shaped by a strong interpretation of free speech and intermediary protections. Technology companies are generally not held liable for user actions unless they are directly complicit or knowingly enabling criminal conduct. However, international norms differ. European regulators, for example, have taken a more interventionist stance toward digital platforms, misinformation, and harmful content. This debate extends beyond battlefield connectivity. Musk's ownership of X, formerly known as Twitter, has placed him at the center of disputes over content moderation, disinformation, and digital safety. Some governments argue that platforms should be responsible for limiting harmful or illegal content. Others warn that heavy regulation risks censorship and political abuse. The philosophical divide is stark. The United States tends to prioritize speech protections, while parts of Europe and Latin America emphasize harm prevention and accountability. Historically, new communication technologies have repeatedly disrupted political systems before regulatory frameworks catch up. The telegraph allowed information and misinformation to travel nationally at unprecedented speed in the 19th century. Sensationalist reporting contributed to public outrage surrounding events like the explosion of the USS Maine, which played a role in the Spanish-American War. Each technological leap compresses time and distance, amplifying both truth and falsehood. What makes the current moment distinct is that private firms now control not just communication networks, but infrastructure with direct military relevance. A satellite constellation like Starlink does not simply transmit tweets or emails. It can guide artillery, coordinate troop movements, and potentially enable long-range drone strikes. The power once reserved for nation-states is increasingly distributed to corporate actors. This creates tension between sovereignty and globalization. Governments expect to control security within their borders, yet satellite networks operate above borders. A company headquartered in one country can provide connectivity across continents, including active war zones. If one side in a conflict misuses that service, is the provider obligated to shut it down entirely? Doing so could harm civilians and allied forces who rely on the same network for communication, emergency services, and humanitarian coordination. In Ukraine, Starlink has also been credited with enabling Ukrainian military resilience after Russian attacks damaged terrestrial communications infrastructure. It has supported hospitals, government agencies, and civilian internet access. The same network that can allegedly be exploited by one side has been vital to the other. That dual-use nature is characteristic of modern technology. GPS, the internet, and even commercial drones themselves were not designed solely for warfare, yet all have become integral to it. International law struggles to keep pace. The laws of armed conflict focus on state actors and clearly defined military objectives. They were not written with privately owned satellite mega-constellations in mind. If a private company's infrastructure becomes central to military operations, does it become a legitimate target? That question alone has profound implications. Destroying satellites would generate debris and threaten global communications, yet leaving them untouched may allow continued military exploitation. Meanwhile, political rhetoric complicates the picture. Musk has publicly dismissed some accusations about misuse of his network, while critics argue that responsibility comes with scale and influence. European authorities have shown increasing willingness to investigate or penalize large technology firms over content and safety concerns. The intersection of digital governance, corporate autonomy, and national security is becoming a defining issue of the decade. The deeper transformation is structural. For most of the modern era, states controlled both the means of violence and the channels of mass communication. Today, individuals and corporations can influence both. A single entrepreneur can deploy thousands of satellites, operate a global social media platform, and shape discourse in multiple countries simultaneously. That concentration of private power is unprecedented in peacetime. There is no simple solution. Overregulation risks stifling innovation and fragmenting the global internet into national silos. Underregulation risks enabling misuse with deadly consequences. Policymakers must balance accountability with practicality, recognizing that dual-use technologies will always carry risk. The challenge is to create mechanisms that deter abuse without dismantling the benefits. What is clear is that the war in Ukraine has accelerated trends that were already underway. Drones have democratized precision strike capability. Satellite internet has globalized command and control. Social media has internationalized narratives. These systems interact sometimes in destabilizing ways. A drone guided by a satellite link can strike a target, while a parallel information campaign shapes global perception of the event within minutes. 5 years from now, the landscape could look very different. More countries may launch their own satellite constellations to reduce dependence on private providers. International agreements may attempt to define responsibilities for commercial networks in war zones, or we may see an escalation, with space itself becoming a more contested domain. What we can say with confidence is that the era in which nation-states alone determined the boundaries of security and communication is ending. Private infrastructure now sits at the heart of both. The decisions made by corporate leaders, regulators, and governments in the next few years will help define whether this new system becomes more stable or more volatile. Either way, the world has already crossed a threshold, and there is no returning to the simpler model that came before.